Hello peeps, welcome back to Big Deck Player. This week we are showcasing a Shaman deck. This is called the Totem Shaman. Apparently has an 84% win rate. Apparently. And this has been posted on Hearthstone by DontBePotato. So this is the deck list. It's pretty straightforward. It's really cheap. Like ridiculously cheap. I mean, last week's one was quite expensive because it had like 3 legendaries in it, so if you didn't have those legendaries it would have cost you a lot of dust to craft them. This deck is like 1800 dust for the entire deck list. It's ridiculous at how cheap this deck is, and it's pretty good. In fact, I think the most expensive card in this deck is the Doomhammer, and you only need one of them. Here we go, let's take a look at this deck from the top down. So we start off, we have 1 Lightning Bolt, 1 mana, 3 damage. It does have the 1 Overload, but it can work well and synergize well with the 2 Tunnel Trogs, because whenever you overload, these gain +1 attack for each of the locked mana crystals. So if you play a Lightning Bolt, which only has 1 overload, these get 1 attack. If you play something that has 2 overload, these get 2 attack, and so on and so forth. So Tunnel Trogs can be really good in this deck. Also at 1 mana we have Primal Fusion. Give a +1/+1 to a minion for each of your totems. So the more totems you have out, the bigger that's going to get, which is really good. And especially as there's a lot of things like Totem Golem, for example, counts as a totem, so when you have your totem golems on the board, that will increase the amount of buff that you get for your 1 mana. So, you know, that's pretty good. And it's only 1 mana as well, so you can buff something up pretty big if you've got plenty of totems on the board just for 1 mana, which is great. Really good. Got 2 Rock Biter weapons. These can be used to cast on yourself to take something out, or cast on a totem to take something out. Ideally, you want to use them with the Doomhammer that I mentioned earlier, which we will come to in a minute, just because you'll get the most value for that 1 mana. We have 2 Argent Squires, which is it seems to be like the normal thing for people to take, or one of the normal 1-drops for people to take at the moment. Ever since like Zombie Chow has gone out of standard, it seems, and Leponome has been nerfed, so it doesn't do as much damage. Seems like everyone favours the Argent Squire more. And, you know, Argent Squire with its Divine Shield, if you've got a whole bunch of totems on the board and you get an Argent Squire late game, if you can buff it with the Primal Fusion while it has its Divine Shield, then that becomes really strong. 2 Tunnel Trogs, as I mentioned before, so they start off as a 1/3. I would say mulligan for these, but if you're going to mulligan for these, then try and make sure that you've got like a Lightning Bolt or one of the Totem Golems in your hand as well, so you can actually buff it. Because there's been a few games where I've played this deck where I get the Tunnel Trogs, like, very beginning of the game, but then I don't get anything with Overload on it until they're already dead. 2 mana. This seems to be a fairly standard for a lot of decks as well nowadays. The Flame Juggler, a 2/3 for 2 is pretty good stats, and you get the 1 damage to a random enemy. Doesn't always go in your favour. If you've got something on the board that's only got 2 health, or even 1 health, it doesn't always hit that target, unfortunately. But Flame Juggler is pretty strong for 2 mana anyway. Also at 2 mana we have 2 Flame Tongue Totems, which give adjacent minions +2 attack. Obviously it is a totem, so it would count towards the Primal Fusion buff. Remember not to play this until your turn you're attacking, because if you put this out and you don't attack with the minions adjacent to it, this is just going to die and it's just going to be a complete waste. So when it's your turn and you have 2 minions on the board, or more, I guess, place your Flame Tongue Totem between them, and then you'll do more damage. As I mentioned earlier, we've got 2 Totem Golems. These are really good. 3/4 for 2. I mean, you get the +1 overload, so essentially they're 3/4 for 3, but still, it means you can play them a turn earlier, and if you've got the Tunnel Trog out as well, it means that gets buffed. At 3 mana, we have 2 Feral Spirits, which summons 2/3 Spirit Wolves with Taunt, and gives you an overload of 2. So this is another nice one to put out with Tunnel Trog, because say you've got nothing on the board, turn 4 you Tunnel Trog and then Feral Spirit, your Tunnel Trog is then a 3/3. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Also at 3 mana we have 2 Hex. Don't be afraid to use these early if you think you've got the tempo and you think you've got the means to keep following up and keep pushing and aggro your opponent. Don't feel bad about using a Hex on something that maybe is a bit smaller, or something that maybe has a death rattle. Some people have actually been using the Tauren, the new 2/3 Tauren with Taunt that drops a 2/2. Some people have actually been using that, but yeah, the Hex is a really good counter to that, because then you don't have to worry about killing the 2/3 Taunt in the first place, and you won't have to worry about killing the 2/2 slime that comes after it. So in that respect, I think a Hex is pretty worthy, because you just get rid of it. Because there's no Earthshock in this deck, so you can't just silence something. So Hex is pretty much your like hard removal. And some board clear, potential board clear in the form of 2 Lightning Storms. These also have overload of 2, so these will also buff your Tarltrog. There's nothing in this deck that gets rid of overload, which might be something to consider if you're playing this a lot. There is a card called the Eternal Sentinel, but it is an epic. It would increase the value, the dust value of this deck by quite a lot. But the Eternal Sentinel is a 2 mana 3/2, and its battle cry is unlock your overloaded mana crystals. Also there's the Lava Shock that you could use, which deals 2 damage and unlocks overloaded mana crystals. So they're both 2 mana, they're both potential replacements for maybe take out 1 Flame Juggler and put 1 of those in, if you're finding that you're overloading quite regularly. 3 mana, we've also got 2 Mana Tide Totems, because we need that card draw. Desperately need that card draw in this deck. You've got a lot of low cost stuff, so the quicker you can get that low cost stuff, the better. If you can hide these behind the Feral Spirits, that would be a good idea. Otherwise, you might just need to keep the board controlled if you can't put taunts out to protect it. At 3 mana, we also have 2 Tuskar Totemics, which summons any random totems, including Mana Tide Totems, Flame Tongue Totems, and Totem Golems, so they're all included in that, which is cool. I normally play the Tuskar Totemic on the leftmost side of the board in case it is a Flame Tongue Totem, because obviously if it is a Flame Tongue Totem, then whatever's on the right of it will get the buff. If you play this on the right hand side of the board, there's probably not going to be anything on the right hand side for it to take advantage of the Flame Tongue, because the Flame Tongue just does stuff adjacent. Or you could pop it down in between 2 minions, I guess, if you really wanted to. That's another possibility. At 5 mana, we make a jump. There's no 4 mana creatures in this deck, so at 5 mana we have a Doom Hammer, 2 damage weapon with 8 durability with Wind Fury, with an overload of 2. So this combos quite nicely with the Tarltrog, and this is why I was talking about Rock Biter Weapon, because Rock Biter Weapon gives you +3 attack for that turn. So if you put one Rock Biter Weapon on this, then you'll be able to do 10 damage that turn. If you put both Rock Biter Weapons on this, then you'll be able to do 16 damage in 1 turn, which is half your opponent's health in one go. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But obviously don't hold on to your Rockbite weapons in the hope that that happens, because you do only have 1 Doomhammer and it might be the very last card that you pick. Also at 5 mana we have a Bloodlust. We've only got the 1 of these, so this is another reason why we want to kind of draw those cards with the Mana Tide Totems as quickly as possible, because the more minions that you have out on the board, the more damage Bloodlust will create, which is great. So this gives your minions +3 attack for that turn. Doesn't give you any attack, just your minions. So the more totems and the more creatures you have on the board, the more damage you'll be able to do. Thunderbluff Valiant. We've got 2 of these. Because we're using a lot of totems, we've got Mana Tides and Flame Tongues and all the rest of it. Thunderbluff Valiant makes sense in this situation. So this is a 5 mana 3/6, which isn't the best kind of stats, really. I mean, 6 mana is a bit tricky to get rid of, unless you're a mage and you have a Fireball, but otherwise it's pretty tricky to get rid of. So it should trade 2 for 1, possibly. But this Inspire gives your totems +2 attack. So every time you use your hero power to summon a totem, it gives all the totems that you already have, including the one you've just summoned, +2 attack. And especially with stuff like Totem Golem, if you've got your Totem Golem out on the board already, then that becomes a 5/4. That's pretty strong. That's pretty strong indeed. And obviously it means that your Flame Tongue Totem can attack, your Mana Tide Totem can attack. It's great. I usually save this for a turn 7 play, because you want to get at least 1 Inspire out of it. At 6 mana, or is it, we have the Thing from Below. So this costs 1 less for each totem you've summoned this game. You could probably get this out quite early, even if you do like have it in your starting hand. I mean, that would be unfortunate. So even if you were to hero power on turn 2, turn 3 and turn 4, that's going to reduce the cost of this card by 3. So that'll be a 3 mana 5/5 with Taunt. Pretty good. So yeah, that is the deck. I'm having quite a lot of fun with it. try and get as much stuff on the board, try and get as many totems on the board, maybe buff them with the Thunderbluff Valiant, or use the Bloodlust, or Doomhammer and the Rockbiter weapon. There's plenty of ways to actually win with this deck. There's no specific one way to win with this deck. So if you do play this deck, let me know how you get on. Also, don't forget to check out the link in the description, which will take you to hearthstone.com, where you'll be able to find this deck for yourself. Tell DontBePotato that his deck's awesome if you enjoyed playing it. And yeah, I hope you enjoy playing this deck as much as I've been enjoying it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.